All right, so welcome. This is the first video in a playlist that is going to be looking at comparing the pandas and polars libraries in the Python programming language. All right, so just want to give a little bit of overview of what were, kind of the goals of this playlist and give a little bit of history on the two libraries we're going to be looking at in this video. So first off, pandas. So it is a very popular library for data analysis in Python. It was released in 2008, so at the time of recording, it's 16 years old. Very popular library. Again, it's pretty much one of the mainstays for people that are doing data analytics or data science using Python. And it's also, a very common dependency for other libraries. All right, so pandas, again, it is, kind of built here on their website as a fast, powerful, flexible, and easy to use data analysis and manipulation tool, primarily working with tabular data structures. So pandas has, two primary types or two primary objects that it implements, that being a data frame and a series. And, again, just extremely popular. Now, one thing that I am going to kind of note is the developer. So who was the original author of the pandas library? So that was Wes McKinney. And recently, so actually just a little bit of history. Wes McKinney, I believe, developed this library while he was working on his PhD. So really this was, developed out of kind of a real need that the author had to kind of develop some tooling in Python that would enable him to, make the progress that he desired on his work. And as you can imagine, at the time, he was really building this, for his purpose. And he did, he open sourced this. And of course, the history tells the rest of the story. It became a very popular library. A lot of people contribute to pandas. And it really kind of, grew to this point where it's kind of too big to change. Right, so you can look up Wes McKinney. He's done a lot of podcasts, written some blog posts talking about the development of pandas. And of course, if you think about it, so this was developed 16 years ago, in hindsight, a lot of things have changed with computers. The Python ecosystem itself has evolved a lot, and just the kind of the infrastructure around data and analytics itself, or how we manage data. And, in hindsight, there's definitely some things that are kind of artifacts of, the initial implementation of pandas that might not be the most efficient ways of doing things. So I'm just going to pull up an article real quick. It's called 10 Things I Hate About Pandas. All right, so this is a blog post by the author of Pandas, Wes McKinney, right? And this is kind of, him reflecting, at least at 2017, on some of the things, if he could go back and change those in Pandas, he would, that would make it be more efficient, both with respect to computational time and memory usage. So, kind of the core thing is Pandas is an amazing library. It, I think, has been pivotal for Python's kind of emergence as kind of the de facto language for data science and analytics. But of course, given the length of time that it was developed, it kind of grew to a point where it had so many contributors and so many people that depended on it that you couldn't really go fix some of the warts in the library because too many people were just depending on it. All right, so that kind of fast forwards us to nowadays, and we have a new library on the block, Polars. All right, so Polars is another library that is really for, data management, data analysis in Python. If we think about it, pandas and polars, so we've kind of got two bears in the ecosystem right now. And they, this is their website, so they're kind of pitching this as data frames for the new era. So it uses a lot of advances in kind of data management under the hood. Also, it leverages the Rust programming language for kind of its core internals, which we get a lot of great benefits from that around, memory efficiency, processing efficiency. So a lot of good things come out of that. And really, it's kind of just, a new library in this ecosystem that does have some very real advantages. And it actually allows you to kind of, port things. So you can do a lot of analysis in polars, and then you can just easily port that over to a pandas data frame to hand off to other external libraries or third-party libraries that might, be expecting pandas data frames. So Polars is still relatively new. It recently went to a 1.0 release. So if I were to go, let's see if I can find the GitHub page here. So this is their documentation. So you can see up here in this upper right hand corner. So it's showing the GitHub stats, and it recently went to a 1.0.0 release. So it is now at a, theoretically a stable set. One thing I will comment on Polars is that they have been rapidly developing this. So at least when it was in its 0 versions, they were very much of the inclination that they were going to break things and to ultimately make this as good as they could. So at least with this 1.0 release, we think there's going to be a little bit more stability. But even with the fact that it's been kind of a very fluid development process, I mean it's a great library, and hopefully these videos in this playlist are really going to kind of demonstrate that. All right, so what was my goal? So Pandas has been around for a long time. There's a lot of videos out there showing you how to do analyses using Pandas, but not as much on Polars. And I think a lot of that too has been an artifact of the fact that things are kind of changing very rapidly. So what I wanted to do is just walk through some analyses end to end now that we're at a 1.0 release with Polars, to just implement things in Pandas, and then immediately we're going to do the same implementation in Polars just to show people some of the key differences in the libraries. Now, again, Polars is, it may change significantly in the future, but there's kind of some core concepts, some core patterns that we see over and over in Polars that I do not think they're going to deviate from. So even if there are subtle changes going forward, I do think overall this playlist will still be valuable in the sense that it kind of gives you the overall understanding of the style of writing code for Polars in contrast to Pandas. All right, so one thing that I do want to show, I'm going to pull this up in an incognito window. So I have created some notebooks. So right now there's going to be, at the time that I'm recording this video, I've got 2 examples that I'm going to walk through, or 2 analyses that we'll walk through end to end. There may be more in the future. So I plan to post all of these on GitHub. So if you were to go to GitHub, let's just look that up. And then if you go over to the search and you do a user : Frame Analytics, all right, you should be taken to this public GitHub organization essentially. And if you go to the repositories, you'll see there's going to be a Pandas Polars comparison repo. So I'm going to put each one of the sample analyses in individual folders. So right now there's going to be a Netflix titles and this Blue Bikes analyses. If you go in there, I'm going to be putting the data up. So I'm only going to be working on analyses where the data files are small enough that I'm able to push those up to this public repository. But you'll have data file in this case. So you got a CSV file, and then there is going to be a Jupyter Notebook file, right? So we go back, and if we look at the Blue Bikes, there's actually going to be, I've got a folder of compressed files, and this is bike trip data. All right, so everything should be as self-contained. Now, when I'm going through these examples live in the videos, again, I'm going to kind of be looking at the notebooks that I have already created to kind of give me some guidance, but I'm not going to try to maybe emulate it exactly, right? I do kind of want to step through certain things, maybe a little bit more carefully, give you an idea of how you can use the Polars documentation to kind of help you along. So they might not be a one, exact match of what's in the videos, but again, these are going to be kind of my North Star as I kind of walk through these examples. All right, so that is going to be it for this video, and the remainder of the playlist will be some of these walkthrough analyses, and hopefully this really gives you at least a much better idea of how, if you've got an existing Pandas code base, you can start that process of translating that over to Polars to kind of realize some of those benefits that come with that library.